like they're lining up.
Well, they're excited.
Hi guys, welcome back. We're the Sons of Mjolnir. Thanks for tuning back in with us today. If you've been here before, if it's your first time, thanks for joining us. I'm Gorgon.
I'm Fat Thor.
I'm Cap.
And today I think we're kind of just talking about part of like the struggles of being a comic reader, what it's like trying to get your comics, and then what happens when we inevitably fall behind. It's a running joke on Twitter that every single one of us has an unread stack we don't talk about, but today we're going to talk about it. You know, and with that, like, how does that affect us as readers, but the comics that we're reading all the time? TJ, how about you get us started, my man?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like you said, I think every comic reader out there can relate to having a giant unread stack just like constantly in the corner of their room somewhere. I always kind of make the joke that I always say you're not really reading comics unless you have a huge unread stack that's constantly judging you from the corner of your room. So that's kind of what we want to talk about today. Just kind of have some comic talk, kind of talk about what we're reading, kind of talk about this, like I said, feeling of, falling behind, what it means to really be in the comic scene, because I know both you guys can relate to not being able to pick up your books one week and then feeling like you're falling behind and then you're kind of out of the conversation for the day or the week. So yeah, I mean, just getting right into it, I would say, talking about being behind, I personally right now I'm super behind on books. I got a couple in last night. I read a couple issues of some books, but majority of all my titles I'm super far behind. And like I was kind of talking about, it definitely feels like you miss out like on the week, you know what I mean? Like you have everyone on Twitter, especially us, like we're all very active on the Twitter space, and it just feels like if you don't pick up your books, you're like out of the conversation, you know what I mean? And like everyone's talking about, oh, did you see what happened in X-Men Red this week? Or, and not only that, but you have the events that are coming up like Axe and all this kind of stuff. So for me, I sometimes I find I get trapped in this feeling of like constantly being behind and like constantly catching up. What do you guys think? Do you guys relate to that? Do you guys get that feeling?
Big time. Yeah, I I have a habit of actually so I get my comics twice. I get them digitally first so that I can read them whenever they come out, and then I get them physically. But I have a habit of getting them digitally and leaving it for like a few days before I touch them, and it's getting worse and worse each week.
Yeah, and that's interesting. So you're more of a digital guy then. I'm a physical guy myself. Gorgon, I'm pretty sure you're mostly physical. Am I wrong?
I'm in between. Like it depends. But yeah, I digital is one of my favorite things that came out of COVID, is right how accessible comics tried to become digitally. I think it's great because a lot of people couldn't get out and get to their house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Marvel's great because they come with the codes, but now it's not, because now I have to take a picture and send it in and then wait for them to email me back on it, or they might not email me back on it, or they might say like, we couldn't verify that picture was clear, when it's literally like a perfect picture of it. I've had the weirdest stuff happen with Marvel trying to get my digital library added over. The DC app, which had a digital library, right, they got rid of, got consolidated into Comixology. Well, if your accounts were on two separate emails, they can't merge them. So I lost my entire DC Comics digital library, which was like, I don't want to talk about how much money that was in digital comics. That I'd spent entirely gone.
That's so trash.
Yeah, I probably spent like 15 hours on customer service with Amazon Comixology, and it's just like, nope, your stuff was on two separate emails, so it's never going to merge.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
so
trash.
Gone. So digital comics is like hard because you're forced to pretty much use Comixology if you want not Big Two these days, or Big Two if you want DC. I love digital, and I love adding the code. I think if it was still just as simple as go in, add your code, I probably would do like I used to, and would buy my comics, add the code, read it digitally. That way I can share photos and stuff, and package my comic and put it away. As an autistic person with a pattern, them changing that threw off my groove, man. And my pattern of stuff, because now I have a box of comics that like aren't bagged or boarded. Shame. I know. Yeah, shame. Because I moved. I moved too.
Shame.
I know, and I moved, and moving was hard, and it set me behind in reading my comics like a month. So now I'm like a little more than a month's worth of comics, not bagged or boarded, not read. You know, like I just and it's hard to look at that and catch back up when you're behind. The catching back up when you fall behind is hard. You know, you're lucky if you find a comic shop that bags and boards for you. Right.
Yeah, that would be love, man.
That's how my first comic shop was. Until like the guy was just they're not a good comic shop outside of that. So I switched to the best in town, but this one doesn't bag and board for you. So I bought my bags and boards, but boards these days, I think TJ and I were talking about this a while back. Dude, it's like you have to have like your own cutting board at home and like cut extra inches off to get them to fit in, or else they're poking holes and tearing it now.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like something I just never really noticed or if that's like more recent problem, but I feel like I never had this problem before, and it's only been in like the last year, maybe 2 years, that I feel like every board I get is like a different, and not even boards, bags too. They're like not all the same size. And sometimes they fit, sometimes they don't fit, sometimes they're too small, sometimes they're like huge, and my book is like swimming in it. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on at these factories, man? Like, again, maybe it's something that I just never really noticed, and this has been a problem. But for me, it seems like it's just recently. I never noticed it before. And now when I'm bagging and boarding books, I would say like 2 out of every 5 books I'm doing are, don't fit, and I got to put it to the side or just toss the whole thing, because it's like no book is going to fit in here anyway. But yeah, besides that, though, I totally agree with all your points, Gorgon, especially with the online comics. I'm a big proponent of what's it called? Marvel Unlimited. Obviously, I'm the Marvel guy. I live and die by that app to mainly catch up on books. I buy all my, new books physically just because I like having the physical copy. But I will say, to your point, though, Gorgon, with the whole DC thing, one, that's absolutely trash. I mean, you spent money on those books, so that should not be a problem to get those back. But I will say, yeah, and I will say, too, at least this is just my personal experience, I like Comixology. I used to have a Comixology account for indies and stuff like that. But to me, the user friendliness has always been trash. Like, I remember when I first downloaded it, I was like so confused of how to even get books. Like, I would find the book and I'm like, okay, like this is the one I want, but you can't like just get it straight from the app. You had to go like to Amazon, and like, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know. But to me, the user friendliness always just was trash to me, and it was always very confusing and hard to navigate for me. So I kind of left that a while ago. But like I said, that's just awful. You spent money for those books, and not only that, I'm sure there's a bunch of people that happened to as well. And it's like, to have nothing to answer for that, just like, yeah, well, you're screwed. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's pretty much, they're like, well, okay, cool, you need to make a new Amazon account, right, that matches your email. And so you do that, and then you go to put in your address and your card and stuff. It goes, your whole profile already is on a different account. It looks like you're trying to copy a profile, or it flags as if you're stealing it, and then it doesn't go through. And then it's more hours on the phone with customer service where they're like, cool, you have to delete your old one or just switch to this one on it. And it's like, what? Like,
yeah,
it's just a mess, man.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Like, again, you paid for the books. I should have my books. It should be that simple. It shouldn't be that complicated.
The user friendliness was one thing that actually put me off DC. I had Comixology for ages, but like it was so hard not hard, but pain in the hole to navigate.
Yeah.
And because I'm outside of America, I can't get DC Infinite, so that was the only thing I could get,
I didn't even know that. Damn, that double sucks.
Yeah. So
I was gonna ask you, Cap, do you have a lot of comic shops around you? I don't really know. I've just heard that, like, outside of the US, comic shops are kind of few and far between in a lot of places. So I was just wondering, do you got a lot of shops around you, or is it hard to find a shop?
My closest one is an hour and 40 minutes on a train. So
Damn.
that's mainly why I'm digital.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Okay.
it's trade, you know.
Damn, that
If it's
sucks.
like the new cap run, I'll get it physically. I'll
Mhm.
order it and wait for it to arrive, but I have to get it digitally first of all to keep up to date, you know.
Yeah. Damn. So that
Otherwise, I just
makes
wait for trades.
yeah. So that makes your comic hunt a lot harder than I would say either me or Gorgon, and we have trouble picking up our books, and you got to really go through the ringer just to get anything, man.
Facts.
Yeah, it sucks ass, man.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, it shows your dedication, man.
Dedicated.
That's it.
Got to stay up to date. So we talked about all the stuff that we're not reading and how far behind. So let's kind of get into what we are reading. So Cap, I want to start with you. What are some runs that you're reading right now? What are you loving?
The only two that I'm sort of up to date with is the two new Captain America runs. That being said, I've still got issue 3 to read. I have it. I just haven't got around to reading it. But those are the two that I'm mainly up to date with. Everything else, I'm issues and issues behind.
So what are you thinking about the new Cap runs, especially having two runs? I hate to put you on the spot, but if you had to, like, do you like one more than the other, or are you kind of feeling them both the same right now, waiting to see it pick up a little bit?
Um, I like them both, but they both have different feels. Like
Mm-hmm.
Steve's feels more just typical Steve, whereas Sam's is it still feels like a filler. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I am behind. Like I said, I haven't read issue 3 yet,
Mm-hmm.
so that might have changed it up a bit. But up until then, it still feels like a filler.
Yeah. So
But
yeah, we were
it
talking
is
about
fun.
that. We were talking about that the last Cap episode. So issue
Yeah,
2, you would say it's still kind of picking up. You would say.
yeah, yeah.
Glad you're digging both of them still, man. You know, like I remember like a lot of people were on the fence at first, like, oh, there's two Captain America runs. How's that gonna be? But like from you and all the other major Cap fans on Twitter that I see all the time, so far both of them are getting nothing but good praise from Captain America readers, old and new into it. And that's just really awesome to see.
Yeah, like there's nothing you can, you know, there's nothing negative about them. Like you
Mm,
can't have a negative. It might not be your thing. Like Captain America in general might not be your thing, but there's nothing that you stand out. This is crap. This
yeah.
is wrong. You know?
Hmm. So would you say there's nothing to really make it like, oh my God, this is amazing, but at the same time, there's nothing to criticize either. Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
just a solid story so far, but like you were saying, it also is still picking up. You gotta, it's
yeah,
still kind of getting its footing, if you will.
yeah. It's one of them runs. It's still picking up at the minute, but
Hmm.
the traction it's picking up with, you know, it's going to be good. Like you can
Yeah.
feel it.
Hmm.
You get me?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hey, with the Venom fan over here, and I'm a big fan of the Hulk, the current Hulk run right now. So we feel you on that, man. We're both of us are big proponents of, like we always say, give it some time to
Yeah,
marinate,
yeah,
give it some time to cook, and then judge it after you get a couple issues in. But yeah, I gotta catch up on Captain America myself. I loved that we talked about it. That issue 0 was amazing, and I'm still about halfway through Sentinel. I like we were talking about, still far behind, but I loved the first couple pages, so I'm excited to get back into Cap too.
yeah. That is issue 0, man.
Oh, so good.
Oh, that was a
So,
good shit, man.
oh, dude, that was so spicy. So moving on, Gorgon, what are you reading? I want to hear. You always are reading something super interesting, very good. So what are you reading right now?
Y'all
What
are
are
gonna
some?
hate me. I am so far behind in my Marvel. Like I
Yeah.
am falling behind as the symbiote guy right now. I won't lie. And it was just because so much of the more recent issues came out this last month while I was moving. We had issues with our old apartment complex. We had to move out a month early, like on the fly, emergency evacuate. We had to move into an unfinished house that we were painting, doing construction on as we moved in. It wasn't safe to unbox all the comics and stuff, right? Like we're still doing some touching stuff around here. So I've been held back. And with that, I've mostly been reading my indies as they come through. I'm not gonna lie.
Hey, we love
As y'all can
indies.
see from the background today, I have cover 1 of Basilisk by Cullen Bunn for my background for everybody today, which I cannot recommend y'all go read enough. Issue 10 just came out. I haven't. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but like y'all need to like go. Like, don't walk. Run to your comic shop and purchase Basilisk by Cullen Bunn. Like it is nuts. It is a slow start, right? A little bit, sure. But he only spends a couple of issues really laying his foundation before getting down heavy into it, and I really like that. I can't talk enough about how much I love Rogue Sun.
Yes, Rogue
Radiant
Sun.
Black is great, and Radiant Red is so dope. For a side story little thing, they're gonna give a volume or 2 on, and that's super sick. But like, Rogue Sun for me is perfect. I don't want to say it's flawless, but it is literally flawless. I can't. There's not a single flaw in that book. I'm still going nuts reading Berserker. We just got another issue of Berserker this last week, the week before, and it is crazy with what they're doing with this like time space god thing involving him now. Like how big picture it actually is. I can't wait to see them try to adapt that in the anime and in the show.
Damn, I'm really far behind on that one then, because
bro, they so a couple issues ago, this is a couple months back, right? They dropped him in the ground in a hole, like under the earth.
Yeah, I think I might have read that.
Yeah, and it takes off from that. Him doing that sparked this like power grid level explosion over a whole part of the planet with it, and like help them, like they're trying to connect to like what would be his mother, like or God, like rebirth kind of thing. Like it's fucking nuts. It's insane.
Damn, I need to catch up.
It's huge. Like I don't know where they're going with it, but it is nuts. And Cyberpunk, man, I think that's the other oddball comic that I didn't expect to love as much as I do, but I am beyond living for the Cyberpunk minis. Like I know I talk about how good Trauma Team is all the time, and it's taken us like a whole year, literally more than a year, to get all 4 issues of You Have My Word, right? Which is a Cyberpunk 4-issue mini that's looking into the part of the city that's influenced by Spanish American culture and like Mexican culture and all of it in the future, and its gangs and assassins in it. But this new one by the same writer called Blackout is in right now, and it's like what happens in a futuristic city when power is lost to parts of it. And it's surrounding this guy who he starts off going to these different places and helping fix and repair stuff and try to like almost doctor people back to health who were like like hooked up to the net when it happens. And now it's got him edge running, and like this, it's just blows up instantly. It's the lore in Cyberpunk is so expansive. I think these minis are a great way to read into it for anybody wanting to get into it, and that's I'm going balls deep in them right now. When I get them in the bag, those are the comics that I have to read right now.
Yeah,
or all my indies.
That's the ones you gotta read as soon as you get them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I'm still, like we keep saying a million times, super far behind, but I need to read Rogue Sun. I need to read Rogue Sun, and I need to catch up on Radiant Black, because we talked about it on our indie episode. I loved the first volume of Radiant Black. So I know that Radiant Red and Rogue Sun, I'm sure, are just as good. So I'm super excited to finally, once I get all these Marvel books situated and out of my way, I'm finally excited to get into those. Cap, have you read any of the Radiant series or any of those?
That's what I was actually going to say. I haven't read a thing. Like I haven't even looked near it. Like I've heard nothing but good reviews.
Yeah, check out Radiant Black, dude. It is so good. I mean, we've raved about it enough. I'm sure that you've heard this a million times, but it's good, man. It's good stuff.
It really is.
Right. The list of indies that I need to check out, man, it's incredible.
Yeah,
there's
insane.
so many.
Well, I'm sure that you kind of fall into the same trap that I do. I know that you pick up a lot of Marvel books as well, and it's like, we're talking about being so far behind, and it's like you get so far behind on your main titles that you're reading. I would love to spend like a day or whatever just reading indies and stuff, but like sometimes it just feels like I have so much to already catch up on. I just don't have time to read these other ones. And I think, Gorgon can probably relate on the opposite spectrum. He's got all these indies he's reading, and sometimes, the Marvel books or the DC books fall by the wayside just because, like we were talking about it, it's hard to catch up. There's so much coming out, and especially, we talk about this all the time. We all three are very easy to please. I'm sure everyone out there can already tell by, the couple episodes that we've done. We rarely do have, things that we don't like or just outright hate. So we want to read everything. And it's just like, it's impossible to read everything and to be in the, on the current conversation on everything unless you're literally just spending all day reading books, which I would love to do, but unfortunately I can't all the time. So yeah, exactly. The wallet hurts, man.
I think for me, what burns me out on Marvel is I look at the new comics coming out, right? And I see Task and everybody do these, hey, new pull list drop, like this is what's coming out, right? And I look at it and it's so easy to get hyped for all this stuff. And we pull it and you got a next thing you know, you have 2 issues, 3 of it stacked up, right, that you haven't read, and you're like, why the hell was I hyped for that even, right? If I didn't even touch it.
Yeah.
And then, but since it's not touched, it makes you panic, and you go, well, I don't want to touch my other Marvel books. If I touch it, then I have to touch them. And then you have an explosion of Marvel that's unread in the corner of your room, right?
Yeah.
For me, with moving and everything, finances, I took a huge break online the other day and I deleted my entire pull list, like 100%, everything. Like I got rid of every single comic on my pull list, and then I started back fresh and reset it from the start with what comics right now do I truly care about reading.
Yeah.
And I built it back fresh. That way, going forward, the comics that I go pick up from the shop physically are comics that I know I'm going to sit down and read, right? Like, I'm not going to lie, I canceled the Axe event, and I was hugely stoked for the Axe event. Y'all know, but it feels like it's just going to end up being cool. We're all going to loosely fight together or fight for a minute, but then all team up together because now we don't just all have to come together to defeat Thanos. It's Thanos and his uncle. Cool. So it's the usual every couple years, everybody team together to defeat Thanos story, plus his uncle's involved now for a touch of spice. Got it. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
I read it, seen it.
Plus, you can always pick up the trade once it's, once it's going through and people are like, holy shit, man, you got to read this, pick up the trade once it's through, and then you can just binge the whole thing.
Books are so much better in trades because you can binge the whole thing in one go.
I know Cap's a big proponent of the trades.
Very big, yes. Yes, very big fan indeed.
Yeah, I love trades. Like like you guys, for both the reasons you guys say, to have the whole story just in one go. But I will admit, going back to that whole like fear of missing out thing, I'm a reader, first and foremost. I, get these books to read and to enjoy. Like I am a firm believer in, reading them as opposed to just having them to collect. But I can't lie, I am also a collector too. And to me, like, I love having the individual issues. And like, while I totally agree, I think that for a lot of stories and runs, the trade paperbacks are better to kind of get the whole story all in one go. But I also can't lie and say that I'm a sucker for having, all my books individually wrapped and having each issue and being like, oh yeah, like, I have, issue 1 through 5 or whatever. And I love the hunt too. Like having, like for example, Immortal Hulk. I have most of the Immortal Hulk run, but there's a couple ones I'm missing. So it becomes like every time I go to the shop, it's like a little Easter egg hunt or, scavenger hunt. Like, oh, can I find an Immortal Hulk 20 today? Like, will I find it? So like I said, I won't lie. I do get caught up in the whole kind of, hunting for books and, all that kind of stuff as well.
Okay, for both. Depending on the run, I'll pick it up in like single issue and then get the trade just so I can binge it all again, and then keep the single issue nice and tucked away.
Yeah,
protected.
Absolutely. Yep. I gotta have them bag and boarded too. don't get me wrong, I'm a human being just like everybody else. So I do have books that, fall by the wayside and don't get bag and boarded right away. But that's like I get like nervous about it. Like I just saw a shout out to the comic book couple counseling. They're a great channel. Everybody go check them out. But I just saw them. They were on vacation this last week and they were like reading books by the pool and stuff. And I'm like, that looks great, but I would have a heart attack sitting by a pool with a comic book. I could not do that. I would get way too nervous.
That's actually a good one to bring up. How do you guys, when y'all travel and comics are coming out, do you set your pull list to your shop and just pick them all up when you get back and in physical? Or do you, while you're on the road, find a shop, or do you just do digital while on the road? Like, how do you guys do as comic readers vacation?
For me, it depends on what kind of vacation it is. Like, I was in Amsterdam there last November. I just picked them up whenever I was there, like physically. But then I was in England, a couple of months ago, and I got them digitally. So it just depends on what kind of vacation it is, or where I'm going and what the occasion is,
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. I think I do like a combination of all of it. So before I leave, like if I'm going back to Chicago, before I'll leave, I'll grab as much of my pulls that I can before I go, and I'll scan all the codes, or like we were talking about, send the email to Marvel, which, speaking of Marvel, if you're listening, that whole system is bullshit. Go back to the regular codes. Moving on though, like I said, I'll put my codes in, so I'll have them on my phone, and then I'll read them like on the plane, or if I'm in the car or whatever. But if I'm away for a decent amount of time, I will try to find a shop like local in the area to go pick up some books. But again, like we were talking about, I am very like nervous and kind of OCD when it comes to keeping my books in good condition. So like, for example, the last time I went, I did pick up books while I was out there, and I like had them all bagged and boarded, and I put them in my backpack, like wrapped in like a towel and stuff, so to make sure that they're okay. But so for the most part, I would say I try to go digital when on the road, just because it's easier, and because, like I said, I'm a weirdo about keeping my books good. But I have, like I said, if I am on the road and I do find a shop, I always want to go in, check out. And especially I'm a big proponent of, supporting your local shops and all that. So anytime I'm in a new place or a new town, I'll try and find a shop and just see what they got. Even if I just pick up one book, just to try and support the community,
Oh yeah.
What about you, Gorgon? What do you go with?
Man, it depends. Like I haven't been on a vacation in a minute. Just with life. I do have one coming up in October, finally. So, which is dope. But it's then when I'm doing that, where we're going, I don't think there's gonna be a shop nearby, from what I found online. There might be. And I just haven't been able to find it, right? Or if it is, it's like a different island away and it's gonna be like a travel by boat to get it, right? So I'll probably will like for while I'm there not, and we'll just pick up my pull list when I get back. What I imagine I'll do is I'll go through my unread stack and finish my bag and boarding before then, and send in all my pictures and stuff, and get caught up on stuff I've already bought while I'm there. In my downtime, and to have me more hyped for what's back at home. The last time I went on vacation, we went to a place in the mountains. And there was one small little comic shop in this town that's like 45 minutes away on top of a mountain. And like literally he was telling me some parts during the winter when they have like blizzards and snowstorms and stuff, he's like, we literally might not get comics for like 3 weeks because it's cars can't get up the mountain to make deliveries. He's like, people can't. He's like, so at that point, we're waiting for like, mail drop packages by helicopter or plane. It's like, and no one's going to do that.
Looking for a helicopter,
books,
right? Like, oh, hey, the comics are here.
Yeah, right. So like sometimes there are like 3 weeks where this comic shops in the winter goes with no new nothing, and they basically just close the door, and that's nuts to me. Within the comics industry, and that's kind of how come I want to ask like what you guys do and what it's like with Cap, buying in Ireland, like find out how far you have to go, right? Because some people, I think as comic readers, we all think, yeah, just go down to the street, your local comic book shop, they're everywhere, which they are, but they're also not. Like
Mhm.
it's really hard for some people out there to get their comics.
Yeah, especially us in America too. I think that's a problem that we don't really experience very much. At least for me personally, I, come from suburbs of Chicago, and we had plenty of comic shops around. I mean, I wouldn't say like hundreds, but there was at least like 3 or 4 shops that that were in my vicinity. And now here in LA, there's comic shops everywhere, and I think being on comic Twitter especially, and just like being more involved in the community, meeting people from around the world, it's a problem I didn't really know existed until, like I said, meeting more people from other places and stuff. And it really is, even in America, there's places, states and stuff where there's really not many comics around. And I know a lot of, Cap can relate to this, and a lot of other of our homies that we have outside of the states, I've heard very similar things, that it's very hard to get books when you're not in the states, and comic shops aren't as prevalent a lot in a lot of places that they are here. So yeah, I mean, again, I think that's why it's so important when you do find those shops. Again, support your local comic shops. Even if you just go buy a book, like supporting the in-person brick and mortar shops are always a good thing.
I'm gonna blow
Yeah.
your mind. Did you know trades are harder to get outside of the US too?
No, I did not.
So I learned that talking with some of my, I guess Venom is with the Venom mutes that I have, right? My mutuals in France, right? The
Mhm.
Baguette Brigade. What I learned on Twitter dealing with them is that the trade volumes that we get here in the States, right?
Uh-huh.
Are done by a different publishing company sometimes, or a same publishing company, but a different licensing group in that company for production and distribution. So sometimes trades might not appear till like in overseas until like 6 months after a trade is physically available here in the US, right?
Yeah.
I remember during the King and Black reign, one of my mutuals that I have over there in France was talking about, oh yeah, Venom Volume 3 just came out. And they're like, yeah, so we can all go pick up Trade Volume 3. And I'm like, the fuck are you on about? Like, it has been out. Like, where have you guys been? And they're like,
Yeah.
no, it literally just released today. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's issues whatever through whatever. And I'm like, that is not the issues for
Yeah.
volume 3. Like, what? And they're like, no, it's different. They're like, we
Mhm.
understand that like trade volume 3 means one thing everywhere else, but here it's
Yeah.
different. And
So
I'm like,
weird.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, so trade production's not on the same page,
Mhm.
right, at all. I don't know if y'all are aware there was a paper shortage during the pandemic, and that affected a
Yeah.
lot of things being printed comic wise. That's how come a lot of comics were delayed, and it's
Mhm.
also why trades were delayed. It specifically affected Marvel's trades regarding their Black, White, and Blood edition. I don't know if y'all heard about that.
I
So
think I might have actually. Now that you're saying it, it's like jogging my
the Black,
memory.
White, and Blood trade paperback for Carnage, right? You can get your regular one now at the shop, but the Legacy edition with the print you could order that looked like it was dripping blood all over and was shiny
Yeah.
a little bit bigger
Mhm.
can only be purchased through, I think it's some bookstore here. Can't remember its name. It's not Books a Million. Green logo. I'm bad at this. But yeah, there's only one shop you can purchase it through, and it's because they had enough paper of their own that they got with the production company. Like, hey, we'll provide the paper as
Mhm.
long as you sell it through us. So the Legacy edition for it can only be
Ooh.
bought through
Yeah.
them because they provided the paper for it and took advantage of that in the paper shortage.
Mhm.
Right. I remember hearing my guy in my local comic shop being like, I can't order that no matter how hard I try. He's like, I know that like you tried getting it in advance. He's like, I can't do it. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, man.
Damn, that's shitty. But I mean, hey, they
Yeah.
capitalize on it.
Yeah, it worked out great. I'm still gonna get it.
One day. Yeah, like I said, I totally can relate to all that, especially like you were saying with that comic shop and the paper shortage. I remember when I first moved out here to LA, there was a shop down the street from me that I went to before. And it was, I wouldn't say the best shop in the world, but it was a decent shop. They had comics, whatever. I went in there when I first moved here, and I was like, yeah, like I'm interested to start a pull list. And he's like, oh, well, I'm gonna let you, and this was in July, and he's like, I'm gonna let you know right now, we're not gonna get any new Marvel books in until at least October. And I'm like, bro, what? And he's like, yeah, like, with this paper shortage and all this stuff, blah, 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 like, we're just not getting any books in. I was like, I'm sorry, man, but I can't wait till October, dude. I don't know if they have a different, distributor or something, but the other shop I went to was fine and they had Marvel books. So, but yeah, I can relate to that. Like you said, that paper shortage really affected a lot of people in a lot of shops, unfortunately.
That's crazy. That's why you go digital.
Yeah, that's another good proponent for digital, honestly.
I'm a huge fan of
Uh,
digital.
Yeah.
yeah, that being said, like I'd rather have a physical, you know.
Mhm.
Without physical, you don't have anything really, you know.
Yeah, true. I mean, again, I'm a collector too, so having like if I can go into my box and go through them, I love that, dude.
For people looking to get into comics who might be listening to us, and if you are new to comics and you've made it this far in this episode and our other episodes, thank you so much for sticking around. We're sorry this one's a little more tedious than others about the trials and tribulations of being a comic reader. But what's one thing from each of you guys for new comic readers that you think would be a good tip at helping to manage your pull list, your shopping experience, and how you consume your comics? Just one tip.
For like new people
Yep.
getting into comics.
Yep, specifically. And it can apply and
Mhm.
help people everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Reading comics, but specifically for new readers.
I think my biggest tip, and I think this can apply to new readers, it can apply to readers that have, maybe have stepped away from comics for a little bit. I think it even applied to me just a couple weeks ago with what we're all talking about, this feeling of, being so far behind. My biggest tip that I always tell people is just start somewhere. Just pick a book, and especially if you're brand new to comics, my biggest tip is just find a character that you really like and just pick up a book that has them in it. It doesn't have to be like their first appearance, or it doesn't even have to be their current solo title. If you see a book that looks interesting and it has a character that you like, just pick it up and start reading. And all this continuation and what happened before, all that kind of stuff, that will come as you read. If you keep reading, all that kind of stuff, the dots will connect.
Sure.
But again, I think a lot of people's problem, and like I said, I think I fall into this too, especially when I fall too far behind on books. It's just overwhelming, the amount of books that are out there. And especially even again, when I say like, oh, just pick a character and start reading, like Thor, for example, it's like, okay, well, do I start with Thor's first issue? Do I start with this run? Do I, what should I just read this run and then read this run after that? Again, my advice is don't worry about that right now. Just pick up any Thor book, start reading it. And then as you begin reading, you'll be like, oh, like, I'm interested on what happened before this. So then I'll pick up these issues. You know what I mean? But again, my biggest advice again is just pick up and start reading. All of that continuity and all that kind of stuff, that will all come later, and if you just start reading, you'll pick it up eventually.
I 100% agree. I was actually saying to a guy I work with a couple of weeks ago, he was asking about it. My tip for him was keep it short and sweet. So like don't go in. Obviously there's a lot. You're gonna have a few characters you're interested in. Try not to get too overwhelmed by all of it. You know, pick maybe one or two characters you like the most. Just grab a book and read.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like just don't fall into the trap of wanting everything because if you're new to it, it seems relatively cheap. Like over here, it's $2.99 for, sorry, $3.99 for the new Captain America run. That's relatively cheap if you think about it. Like you're new, you're expecting, it's maybe going to be 10, 15, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see £4. It's like it's relatively cheap, so don't get trapped. Don't fall into that trap of it's cheap, I'll grab it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think that applies too to even just us talking about being far behind. It's easy to get overwhelmed with, oh, like what should I start with? Like, should I start reading this? Like, I'm behind on this. Should I start reading this? Again, I fell into this trap a couple of days ago, and I had to just remind myself, just read anything. Just start reading. You know what I mean? Like, why am
Yeah,
I worrying about like, oh, should I read Black Panther first or should I read Thor first? Just read. Just pick something, start reading. That's again my
Good
biggest
point.
advice. Yeah.
That's a good point. Man, I think if I could go back and tell me anything as a new reader, right, what I would tell me as a new reader early on, is make use of, if you don't know what you want to read in particular, but you know you want to read, right? Like, and you know I really like Marvel. Cool. Then buy Marvel Unlimited. It's not
Yes.
super expensive. Yes, it's digital. It's a great backlog. It might not catch you up to date entirely with them. Like, you might, depending on the run, be missing 2 to 3 issues that are out. Tops,
Yeah.
right? But it lets you get exposed to it all at a great cost, and have like what is almost a seemingly infinite library worth of comics to read
Yeah.
and catch up on. That will help you figure out what you're into. And then if there's a story that you want to read, you're like, you know, I don't know if that's for me. I still have to have it in my hands, but I don't want one issue to sample it. I need something meatier. Go buy a trade.
Yeah.
Go buy a trade.
Yeah.
Go look at the trades on the shelf and pick you the trade, something that you can sit down for 25 to 45 minutes and read, and sit there and have a cup of coffee with, pet your pets with, and just enjoy. I buy trades myself for stories, usually that either it's an event that I want to read all at once, or it's a story that I've already read that I fell in love with that I want to share. And I'm notorious about letting people borrow them, never getting them back, and having to buy another trade. I bought the same trade for Cyberpunk Trauma Team, I think 4 times now, right?
Oh,
I'm about to
man.
have to buy my one for Basilisk Part 1 for the second or third time now, right? But here's my thing, your trade's 15 to 20 bucks tops, right? In stateside. I'm gonna buy that trade, and if I give it to someone and they fall in love with it and that's what makes them want to read comics, cool, done.
Worth
Like,
it.
that's a good 15 bucks out. That's 20 bucks is one adult dollar. Like, cool, for one adult dollar, I got you into something you're gonna enjoy for the rest of your life. You know,
Absolutely.
find one adult dollar in your wallet and go down and buy you a trade of something that just looks cool and just read it and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll also throw out there too, don't be afraid to ask, any of us on Twitter or any comic nerd. We all love talking about, I mean, there's outliers out there, sure, but we all love talking about this stuff. And I'm sure that any comic nerd would be more than happy to talk with you about, what you might be interested in. And I'll also say too, talk to your people at your comic shops. Go to the person at the
Yeah.
counter, ask them. And I think a lot of people too get very caught up in, DC, Marvel, and superheroes and stuff. But there are so many comics out there that have nothing to do with superheroes. Like, if you're into, crime or mystery, or like even like rom-coms and stuff, like there's a book out there for you. So go talk to your local shop owner, see what they can offer you. Again, they are more often than not the nicest people that you'll ever meet, and they are always down to talk about comics. So don't be afraid to ask questions, don't be afraid to go in there and ask for some suggestions.
Yeah, that's actually who is it? Bear with me. Brian Azzarello. I had to double check his name there so I don't say it wrong. But he had a run out of, or a mini out a while ago. It's called Moonshine. That's actually how I got that. I was talking to a guy in the comic shop and he was like, "Oh, have you checked out Moonshine? I know, like you're in the comics, blah blah blah." I was like, "I haven't actually." And he was like, "Oh, it's so good. It's crime. I was like, fair enough. So I picked it up. Still haven't read it right now. But I
Yeah,
have it. That's one step closer.
yeah, exactly. One step closer. And like I said, I think, even if for most people that are knowledgeable about comics, if you just tell them like, yeah, I don't know, for example, I loved the Punisher TV series, right? Like, just based off of that, we can give you a lot of recommendations on, oh, well, if you like this, you'll most likely like this as well. And, so far and so forth. But moving on a little bit, talking about all these books, I want to hear from you guys. So, what we talked about, what we're kind of currently reading and what we're really liking, but I want to know, what is one, if you had to recommend one book to people that you're currently reading right now? Obviously, there's many, many great books throughout history, but I'm talking specifically what you're reading right now. What's one run that you say is your must read? Like, you would recommend anyone to go out and pick up right now? Cap, I'll start it off with you. What's your must read? Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So obviously coming off the back of Ta-Nehisi Coates' run and Nick Spencer's run, Captain America sort of lost its way. It started to feel a bit stale for a while, and then you get them minis in between, like the United States of Captain America. You get Captain America and Iron Man, which sort of bring the feel back. But Kelly and Lansing, that run, it just has a really nice feel to it. It feels like normal Steve again,
Mhm.
and it's good to get back to that feel, you know.
Absolutely.
So I'd 100%, I'd say check it out. If you like Captain America, you're going to like it.
Absolutely, for sure. And would you say it's a good jumping in point too for like a new reader for Cap?
No,
No?
no, no.
Okay, that's
Uh,
fine. That's
Um,
fine.
ugh,
Not
I'm leaning
necessarily.
more towards no, but
Mhm.
at the same time, y- like you said earlier, missing context. If you're enjoying the run, you're obviously going to want to check out earlier
Mhm.
stuff to see why this is happening,
Yeah.
how this come about, you know.
Mhm.
So I'd lean more towards no. It's not a good starting point, but at the same time, pick it up, read it,
Yeah.
enjoy it,
I
go
more
back and
so
check it out.
mean, I guess I more so mean not necessarily for the story, but like for people who know who Captain America is, like they know the
Oh yeah, yeah.
basics, but maybe aren't caught up with the current storyline. But would you say it's new reader friendly in the sense of like if you know who Captain America is, you know the gist, like you can jump in and start reading this and not be completely
Yeah, yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, for sure. Gorgon, what about you? What's your must read right now? Dun.
Basilisk, 100%.
Hey,
Like I
we are
God,
in the Cullen Bun business here. We have said
we
it
are in the
before.
Cullen Bun business. I know I'm a Cullen Bun shill. And that I can't make it like 2 days without bragging about how much I love that man's writing.
As you
But
should, as you should.
as we should. But I
Yes.
really love Basilisk. I can't quite, and I was talking with a mutual who's been reading it a while back on Twitter, Jared. I've mentioned him a couple times on the show. Great guy.
Shout out, Jared.
And I can't quite put my finger on with it, but I think Bun's got something magical on his hands here.
Mhm.
It seems like he's got a long-term plan with it. The lore in it seems like it's deep and expansive, yet for the surface level, just reading it at the moment, it's a blast, right? And if you're someone
Mhm.
who wants to sit there and nerd it out about it and analyze things in detail for the bigger picture, it's got all that for you there too. It's like not quite gods, but not gods level deities and crazy powers and sabotage and espionage. It's just a wicked, wild ride, and the art is crazy. Who's doing that? So it's Colin Bunn, Jonas Scharf, Alex Gutierrez on here. It's crazy the way the art and his writing style have gone together here. The use of solid color pages, I think, in this really separates it more than a lot of other things for me, right?
Mhm.
There's a whole lot of pages where blue is the dominant color on the page and your purples and blacks might be more it. Or like I'm looking at one now where it's greens is a lot of the colors for the palette on the page,
Uh-huh.
right? It's yeah. And then they build the art around that and it really makes it sharp and stand out in ways I wasn't expecting. I issue 10 just came out and I feel like we've been waiting months and months and months for issue 10. I Great story. I think it's got something for everybody. I love it.
So it's not a weekly or bi-weekly release then?
I wish. I wish it were. It's about every 3 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes we get one like every two.
Mhm.
But and sometimes it's like a month in between, like Hulk even right now, right?
Yeah.
We're waiting for a minute on the next Hulk issue, right?
Thor
Yeah.
2.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's, sometimes you have a pause in things on it.
Yeah, and that's fine.
It's Alien gets that regularly. I'm reading Alien and I really enjoy it, with Philip Kennedy Johnson, but he's active duty military if y'all aren't aware. So sometimes his
Okay.
comics and writing take a while to come out. That's how come he
Mhm.
doesn't sign on for like a ton of stuff. It's the stuff he signs on for. Stuff is like cool, you might get 2 or 3 issues here, but you might not get another one for like a month and a half, right?
Oh,
Like,
I didn't
yeah,
know that.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So, yeah,
No, I didn't
so
know
it's
that either.
yeah, which makes sense
I
about
am.
like why there's a lot of militant elements in a lot of his stories.
Yeah, no, I need to catch up. I need to read Basilisk. We talked about it on our indie episode. And like we said before, we are for sure in the Cullen Bun business. I will support anything that man does. So I need to go pick up the trade ASAP because I know I'll love it. I know it'll be great. Yeah.
We should have like a fun fact of the day from Gorgon, like a wee segment.
Dude, we should. Gorgon's
Yeah.
always coming with the facts, man. He
Yeah,
came. What
always
did he?
banging out the
I say, what
facts.
did he have last week that blew my mind? With the Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool
Yeah.
with Blade Trinity. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
always,
That was cool, man. Yeah.
bro.
I
Gorgon
love
is
small facts.
dude.
Thanks.
He's an enigma of things.
It's the autism. Yeah.
Oh, geez, that's hilarious. But yeah, man, we got to think of a name for it. Gorgon's thoughts or something, like a short little segment.
Oh, I don't know if y'all want those. I don't even want those, man. And I gotta live with them.
Gorgon's daily facts.
Yeah.
But moving on, so I guess it's my turn then. I guess I'll go. So my must read, the one that I am recommending to everybody, which again I am behind on, but I am recommending Moon Knight, the current run of Moon Knight. So
Jeff McKay's writing that, right?
Yes, he is. He is absolutely killing this run. I have been shouting from the rooftops since it started about how good it was. And it is just, in my opinion, it's just getting better and better. Every issue leaves me wanting more. I would say it's, perfect for new readers, especially with on the heels of the MCU Moon Knight show. Not saying that it has anything to do with things that are happening in the show, but just like if you watch the show and you're like, oh, Moon Knight's interesting, I would definitely recommend picking up this new run as your kind of starting point. It again, very new reader friendly. I would recommend a lot of his other runs too, especially the Jeff Lemire run for sure. But again, I am loving this series. The art has been incredible. The story has been really good. It's full of action. It's got some deeper themes to it. But yeah, like I said, I can't really rave about it enough. Unfortunately, like I said, I'm a couple issues behind. So I can't really speak of what's going on in the story currently. But I can say, like I said, each issue leaves me wanting more, and I can't recommend it enough. So if I gotta go with a must read, you gotta go run and pick it up right now. I'm going Moon Knight for sure. That's my pick.
I like that. I
Right.
like that.
I'm on like issue 2 or 3 of the current Moon Knight. I'm so far behind on it.
Yeah.
But what I've read, I've really enjoyed.
It's good, man, and it's got some twists and turns, especially in the last couple issues. There's some, like I said, things that happened that I caught me by surprise. So, like I said, I'm really loving it. It's probably, obviously, I love my Thor, I love my Hulk, all that stuff. But I honestly, Moon Knight has become the one book that I'm like, oh shit, a new Moon Knight dropped. Like, I gotta read that right away. So, like I said, I'm really loving it.
I read the first volume's worth.
Okay, so you're
yeah.
decent amount in.
Yeah, I'm a decent amount in, and then I paused on it on my pull list with it. After reading the first volume issue by issue with it, I just decided this is a story that I would rather binge. Because it is so good. It leaves me exactly like that, wanting more every single time I read it. I'm like, nope, need the other issue right now. And that's something that I feel like I fall into pretty regularly. Is some of these stories are just so good that it's nothing against them. Reading them weekly doesn't work for me. I need the whole volume ready to go right now. Which is why I said new readers, go buy you a trade. I fall in love with the story, read the whole dang thing, and then go blow your wallet.
Absolutely. For everybody out there, go buy a trade, go buy a single issue, buy a back issue, buy a current book. It, like we said, it doesn't matter. Just go start reading. If you're interested,
Just buy a goddamn book.
Yeah, just go buy a damn book, damn it.
Right. And read it. Don't let it go to your unread stack. You read that son of a
Yes,
bitch.
you open it and you read it. You don't got to bag and board it, but you got to read it.
I say if you want to know more about what we're currently reading, you should follow us on Twitter at the Sons of Mjolnir on Twitter, or individually. I'm the Last Gorgon, Fat Thor, Caps Comics. We're pretty easy to find. I say you should go out and drink some water today, get a little bit of sunshine in your life, maybe stand up, do a little bit of stretching, don't get too stiff, people, and have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with all that. Like Gorgon said, stay hydrated, go out, read some books. Cap, you have anything else for everybody?
Enjoy life. No, seriously, it's been wonderful. But
all right, we'll see you all next time. Make sure to like, subscribe if you like this video, and we will see you guys all next time.
I can do this all day.